All right, welcome back. Happy Monday, everybody. We are joined by Missy Megginson. I always want to say your last name incorrectly, and I actually, Jen, I don't even know if I told you this, but I said it wrong on one of the interviews. I did. I had to go back. Yeah. I felt terrible. I had to go back and edit it.
It's okay. People call me Megan because it's a thing. Also, I'm just going to be totally honest. I know that your podcast is released on Mondays, but it is not Mondays. So when you just said that, my brain went like so many places. I was like, wait, what?
I'm missing some days.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about money, math, numbers, metrics, all that stuff.
Don't stop listening.
Listen to the end.
You hear money, metrics, anything like that. It's like, yeah, not for me, although it's for everybody.
Yeah, don't stop listening. And tune in to the end to hear our final. No, I'm just kidding.
A special announcement.
I was thinking special announcement. Oh my gosh.
I guess let's start with, it's a new year. And where should, what sort of numbers should people be paying attention to? Maybe they haven't paid attention very well to their numbers up until now, but this 2024 is their year. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to step things up and be a big boy or girl and handle business. Where should we be looking?
I think the first place you should look is your numbers from the previous year. Depending on how the year ended, it can feel really good. Here's in the past. December is usually a really good month for stylists, and November as well. And you can get a false sense of what your bottom line might look like because you end the year on a high. And then from just historical data from our company at Schedulicity, and then just my experience, 20 years in the industry, January and February are usually very different numbers. So it's extremely beneficial to you to look at your numbers from the year and try to find some kind of balance. Because I've had times where my bottom line is almost $5,000 higher the month of December, and I'm not even working more hours. It just happens to be what clients are purchasing or a gratuity situation. And if I were to plan my business based on that metric, we would be in trouble.
Right.
Yeah, you need a starting point. Basically, what it breaks down to. If you don't know where you're starting from, then it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to gather numbers, basically what you're saying. If we think about it backwards, you're going to have to gather numbers for the next year because it is really cyclical when you look at things.
Yes, 100%. So I would gather, and this is depending on reports in terms of your software, whatever software your business is usually using, the permissions for that can be different based on if you're commission or independent or whatever. I will tell you right now, if you approach a conversation, and you all can speak to this as well, since you are commission salon owners and you are a commission stylist, and you want to sit down with your boss, or you just want to ask for what your reports looked like, because on one hand, I could tell you could go in and do it yourself by looking at even just your bank deposits, but that wouldn't give you an itemized of what was gratuity and what was potentially a retail sale. And I think it's a great way to start the year off to see sort of what money fell into what buckets for the year. And then I would total your year and average that by month. So even though obviously monthly it's different, you want to plan on your overall year being a certain number, not those highs and lows.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. There's so many numbers. I love it, but most people don't. So I'm trying to keep it to
I could totally nerd out. This is where my analytical side, this is where normally I'm like, Jen, we are the same person, but Todd, you and I might be you guys totally nerding out on
That's
this.
Fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen.
I'll tell you. So I think I love looking at the year prior. I think it's really great to see the highs and lows of like you said, if you look at all the months in the year, you'll see your best ones, your low ones. And I think the averaging it out as to what that looks like per month is really smart, because then you're like, oh, okay, on average, I'm doing this. I also love looking at, and it's kind of a game I play with myself, is like I wonder what's the most services I've done. Like, where am I, like, what service is my top? And I generally am off. Like, it's really kind of funny to look at it like, wow, a lot of my, services, or the money that's coming in from the services I provide, are coming from X, Y, and Z. And I think what's neat is to see that. And then, like, are those the services that I want to be doing the most of? And if yes, great. That helps my social media campaign for the next year. And if not, my social media campaign needs to focus on the ones I want to attract more of. And I think it's neat to see that year prior to help those numbers then kind of push your marketing also.
100%. And I think when we like what we're doing, everything sort of falls into place under that. So you can run those numbers and see that maybe your maintenance appointments were your hero of the year, your hero service. But if a maintenance appointment is something that you're like, honestly, that's not what's totally bringing me joy. I'm really wanting to go into color correction or big projects. This is where you should be tuning into the numbers. So this is where it's like, don't stop listening because we're getting somewhere.
It's where the numbers can be fun.
Yes, and the numbers can help guide your steps. So instead of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, you say like, okay, I know that my safe spot is when I'm offering maintenance appointments. But I know that to your point, Jen, my marketing and what I'm going to promote on my social and what I'm going to ask for referrals for is what brings me joy. And so hopefully we can then start to, as the year goes, start running those numbers and see a pivot there.
And I don't know if everyone always thinks of that they're in control of that depending on how they drive that car, So 100%. By using the numbers, you can now look at your new year and your goals are, hey, I want to do more of these services, or these are numbers I want to hit, which means I need bigger ticketed items. And now you can roll out a plan or a strategy to get you through the year, because that's going to be a rolling kind of goal, right? It's not all going to happen at once. But if you don't start these little baby steps, by the end of next year, it's pretty much going to be the same.
Yes. And if what you currently have on your books is again, like I'm just going to use the maintenance appointment example, if you have a lot of that is going to be your stability in the income. So just all of a sudden just be like, I no longer offer this. This is one train of thinking. This is where we start getting into being in tune with your personal business numbers and what you want things to look like versus just looking at what's happening on social media, because it became very trendy for a little while to be like, I no longer do XYZ, so I can open up my books to do whatever. That is totally a doable thing if you are in a position of privilege to do that.
Correct.
There are so many other things that would need to be in the back end for that. Potentially you've saved up some money, or you're actually wanting to cut back on your hours, or you're actually wanting to pivot what things look like. You cannot make those decisions and then all of a sudden you've gotten rid of your stable income number to pivot this process that you do, that you might get into it and be like, actually, I don't like being knee deep in somebody's color for 5 hours. We run out of things to talk to, and you don't even know that yet. And you've just pivoted your whole business.
Right.
For sure. One of the things I want to point out is the P&L, because I think people get afraid of, well, actually, you know what? Let me use this example. So one time, Jen, you're going to laugh here. So we were talking to, or we were in a meeting. I don't remember exactly. It was probably like 7 years ago. And the owner of the business was like, they saw the top line. So like revenue coming in, and it was over $1 million, which is awesome. Right. And they literally were like, I just used the word literally. I'm out of here. Bye. Anyways,
that's my favorite word.
Really? I try not to say it. It's lost its punch. So this person saw $1 million and was like, I can't believe it. I'm a millionaire. But you ran at a negative.
The business was negative 1.5%.
1.5%. You paid $15,000 to work.
So the $1 million were nothing.
Yeah. So it's the power of having a good accountant, and I preach that all the time, is that they should be able to give you a very detailed P&L. You can see the numbers, you can see the dollars coming into your business, and those are cute, but it's really the ones that you collect on the bottom line that you get to keep that's what's actually relevant. And by looking at all those lines, like even like your software or your color management or whatever, and having everything and knowing where every dollar goes to, And you don't have to get crazy, but I find that when you really look into them, it does the opposite of what you think it's going to do. You think, so when I had my first business, I thought I'll ignore those numbers and just, I'll pay my rent when it comes, and then I'll pay for this when it comes. And then you run out of money because you don't know where anything is or what position you're in. So by actually looking at that P&L, it might freak you out at first, but then you're going to get like this relief off of your shoulders because you understand. And now that you have that power to make, other decisions based on that.
I think the understanding it is huge.
100%. I was just going to say, I actually would, to literally back you up there, Todd, I would argue that you should not be making any decisions impacting your finances in your business without looking at what that statement looks like, because that literally is your guiding force. That is if what last month's P&L statement looks like, you can feel like you need help. You can feel like you need another hire. You can feel like you might need to update something. But if you look at those numbers and there is not anything that's actually backing that sentiment up, we can feel lots of things. But in business, you do have to have that back end power in alignment in what your actual finances look like to be able to make those decisions. So if you're feeling that way, but your P&L statement isn't backing that up, then you have some work to do the next month to see if you can actually make those dollars make sense.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Every decision needs to come, well, not every, but the majority of the decisions that you make regarding money or even the direction of your business are going to come from that P&L.
Right.
What else was I just going to say? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, and this is where I'm going to just continue to, you can get annoyed with me and I'm going to continue to just pound it away. You cannot pay attention to the numbers that anybody else is saying in their business. You cannot, because what people are charging or bringing in, it looks super flashy to say $800 for a service. You have zero idea what their overhead is. You have zero idea how responsibly or irresponsibly they are spending their color, or are they tracking it? Are they using a color management software like Vish or Salon Scale? What are the back end numbers to that? It feels super flashy to say, like, I brought this in. Nothing was more humbling than when my husband and I owned 2 Jimmy Johns and we grossed over $2 million a year in that. And I will tell you what, I was not a millionaire, and I can show you what those numbers look like. And so you get this very stark reality of what gross income versus net income is, and it's real.
Yes.
Jen, I was going to mention products because we've talked about that a lot. And salon owners, some of them out there will just, whatever product line comes out, they just purchase your intro kit. And all of a sudden you have, tens of thousands, if not more, dollars of retail sitting there on your shelves. And I'm not knocking salons that sell retail, but what does that actually mean for your business? Like, are you selling that, or are you just bringing that in because you think it will attract clients or attract staff, or like, because those things, like Missy pointed out earlier, you can feel like getting this new brand is going to take your salon to the next level, and it may, but we need to look at the numbers. Like, is that even responsible for you to do right now? Or is that something in the future? Or do you have, like, is there a way that the distributor could take some products back from you or whatever, But you have to account for that. It can't just be money out all the time. I think that's one of the major issues in the industry, is probably other industries too, but.
Yeah, we are in a unique situation, though, where I will say we are not only business owners. So we are in situations where we're business to business, which would be a B2B marketing thought process, but we also are a consumer in the product world. So we're being marketed to B2C. So we are getting it at every kind of, when you said a new product line, you're probably feeling that way because you had a really, really good rep. Just being so for real.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're doing their job amazingly, but you have to be okay to like step back and be like, I love everything they're saying, and I see everything they're saying about what this can do for my business, but is this actually true? Because a lot of times it's not. And this is coming from somebody who literally wrote a retail curriculum for a professional beauty brand. So like I know how we're being spoken to, but one of the big things in there that I sort of pounded on was the first thing you need to do is find alignment in your business within the products that you're going to choose to carry. And if you can kind of stay there, if that alignment factor is there, it does keep you from making those emotional, like, what will this do for my business type of thing. It's
That's
their
where we always go
job.
back to it is their job. And this is where Todd and I would say, what are your core values? What is your mission statement? And when these things come on your plate, does it fit the brand that you're putting out? Does it fit your vision of your company? And I don't think everyone always thinks that, because it's that quick last minute pick, right? Oh, it's $5. I'll take it. Oh, it's a shiny new product. We're bored in here. We need something. Well, okay, but do you really? Like, if you need something, you might want to look at the whole business and see what actually is the missing hole. It's probably not the product line.
Yeah, because if you have products sitting, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not the product line. Right. Because I could pretty much argue that they're all going to offer a similar things. Now, something that, and now we're getting totally off topic, but I'll say this and then I'll stop. Something that if you have products sitting, I would say maybe something to look into when you're making your product choices on top of alignment is their marketing efforts, because when products are marketing in a way that is aligned with how you market, it makes your job easier to market to your clients. Your clients come in and say like, oh, I mean, do you guys remember when like WOW went crazy? Because like it was on the Today Show, right? Like that was one where it was like, if you could make that kind of fit into what you wanted to do, you knew you were going to sell some, because it was just being so heavily marketed to the consumer.
And it's super tempting because we think it's going to be a quick fix, and it may be. But again, it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, Missy, is that then you have sort of this artificially inflated number. So I actually want to touch on that again, because I remember something else I was going to say. You said when you zoom, I literally just remembered. You had mentioned that you will zoom out and look at your year, which is great, because I think a lot of times when you're working in an appointment-driven industry, it's really easy to look at your day, your hour. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have anything going on at noon. But when you scroll out to your week, it's like, oh, but I have my best week ever. And then when you scroll out to the month, it's even better. And you scroll out to the quarter, and you might be down, but then you scroll out to the year, and it's back up. So you get that average. But also what you can do with that is you can look at those slow times and you can question it, and then maybe, I don't know, plan for the future. So say you're just dead, July 4th week or whatever, right? Businesses, I know in the gym world, I was down. Like nobody came in. Everyone was on vacation. We live in the Northeast. It's nice out for like 4 months out of the year. People are gone. So how do you, like, maybe you just need to save or put some money away for that time or whatever. And that really helps with being able to do that if you're willing to dive into your numbers a little bit.
Right.
100%. And the idea that, again, yes, this is a passion and it's an art or whatever, but it's also it is your job. It's a job. Yep. And it is also consumer driven. And I think sometimes we forget that. So when we talk about boundaries and what we want our life to look like and things like that, those are all great things. But we also do have to remember that we are a consumer driven, service based industry. So the example I would give you is that would be super great for an accountant to be like, you know what? I know that I feel like I need some time off at the end of March every year. That just feels right for me. Well, that would be literally just a killer for their business, because if we're looking at their consumer driven facts, that is going to be the time where they are going to be able to capitalize and make their most amount of profit, and then they plan ahead. So this is not just like hair based. This is where, Todd and I like to geek out on business principles at large. And that's where we get elevated as an industry, is when we look at that. So paying attention to maybe when your numbers dip, that gets to give you maybe that's when I'm going to take my time off next year. Maybe I'm going to plan ahead for that, because this is clearly like a pattern, but you won't know that unless you run your reports and look at it.
Right.
Right. And maybe it's not a pattern.
think-
That's actually something worth pointing out. When you look at
Yes.
your month or your whatever, if you look at a year, you're going to have those ebbs and flows. You might have a low point somewhere, like maybe 1 year, like the flu runs through your salon. So you can identify that, you know what I mean? And be like, okay, these numbers aren't because clients didn't want to come in, and they're not because whatever. It's because we got wiped out for a month. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the more, I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that that people don't want to see the numbers because they're so afraid of it, yet they're afraid whether they look at them or not. And once they look at them, which is what you were saying earlier, Todd, like once you actually do look at them and you understand sort of your past year, how to support your next year, the relief that comes with that and the anxiety that gets released is absolutely amazing. And now you're not running your business out of fear and in some dark spot. You're running it with knowledge and power and actual real information. And that part of being scared about your business goes away because you're in it. Like if your business is sucking, you feel that it sucks. Once you see the numbers, it doesn't suck anymore. It just gives you your reality. And now you have a powerful tool to help that business thrive, or some great information of like, what am I doing with this business? What changes either need to be made, or what changes do we need to make in order for this to either thrive or not, right? But by not looking at them, it doesn't help you in any way possible, and it doesn't make you sleep any better. It's actually worse for you.
Oh, yeah. And then to your point, you have zero data to back that up. You're just going on pure emotion, and our minds can tell us so many things, especially when we are emotionally connected to the work that we do, because it is this strange hybrid of a skill plus an art plus a relationship. We are in it at every level. So you do need to look for those truths to back up what you're feeling, for sure.
Jen, I like what you just said about even if your business is sucking. I think that's how you said it, but it's having that now, it's like, well, what can you do about it? Because now that you know the numbers.
Where does it suck the most? What's happening? Right. How do we make, and it's always going to be small steps. It's a marathon. We say this all the time. It's why I think for a lot of people, business is really difficult, because it's not a sprint. Like if your business sucked last year, you hope it sucks less the next year. But like if you don't make any changes or understand what is literally killing your business, then you cannot make changes in the next year, or you're trying to make them emotionally, and that's not going to help that next year. It's the numbers are what's going to help that business at least get back on track, or make small changes that hopefully by the end of the year, you're not as like bad off as you were the year previous.
So for somebody that is new to numbers and they're like, I've had my business for 2 years or whatever, and I feel like
you have a lot of data.
Yeah. I feel like I should be further along, but I keep, running out of money or whatever. Right. What are some metrics that because people hear us and we're like numbers, like P&L, whatever. What are some like specific metrics that you both think that would hold some value or give some data that is then actionable? Because I think often it's, well, I just need more clients. That sort of mindset comes in, or I just need whatever. And I think it can be easier to nudge the numbers if you look across a few things and then sort of nudge each one a little bit, rather than, because I mean, how many clients are you going to end up with? How many hours are you going to work? You know what I mean? So what do you think? Anyone have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a super loaded question, I feel like, because I have so many questions that I want to ask. I would say, like, do you feel like you're fully booked? If you're not fully booked, we need to talk about that. If you feel like you're fully booked, but your numbers are still sucky, then we need to talk about where your money's going. That's where the P&L statement goes. Exactly.
That's another one that we see is, if your pricing is
so low.
If you don't know what it takes for you to break even or open every day or every month, it's going to be tough for you to do anything. Thanks, ESPN app. So I think knowing say it takes you, I don't know, $500 to open per day. If you're not charging enough that you're able to make more than $500 a day, there's no hope. The math doesn't work. You're not going to make money. So pricing might
And
be something that you look at there.
Or if you're charging that, but you're not fully booked, then we need to look into why you're not fully booked. Is it a marketing situation or is it a client experience situation? Which is why that can be such a loaded, like, I want to know, are you booked? Are you not booked? Are you booked, but you're not actually bringing in enough to make the money? That bottom line is, like, to your point, knowing what you need to bring in monthly to be able to profit in your business, that's your starting point. And that is whether you are commission or you are an independent or you're a salon owner, that number, because let's boil it down to, like, at its core, a commission stylist. What's your next step then? Like, what do you need to bring in for your next goal that you want to hit, or what you need to bring in to be able to work the hours that you want to work to be able to make what you want to make? Like, there's a number that you should be running at every level in this industry.
Yeah, we've done this exercise with our staff. When we do goal settings with them, we need to know, I don't need to know exactly where your money is going. That's not important to me, but I want to help you get to, like, the lifestyle that you want to build for yourself. So what does that look like? You know, you have your rent, you have your car, you have your phone, you have your bills, total that stuff up, and you want to be making that amount or more. And then again, this is totally loaded because maybe it's just, this is somebody starting out and they just need to build their career.
Right.
You know, or maybe it is an adjustment, or maybe it's, okay, it's not possible for you to do that realistically because we would have to, you're getting booked, but we would have to raise your price so much that maybe we do it in 2 steps or 3 steps or whatever, you know? I do want to talk about, I don't know why I like this number, but retention. If you are, I don't know if it gets forgotten, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about retention. You could have all the clients in the world coming in, but if you're not retaining them, something is wrong. And I think, Missy, you might have said something a minute ago that sparked that thought.
That client experience.
The client experience. That was it. Thank you, Jen. But I think retention, because it's like, you could have someone on your staff for, say, like 2 or 3 years, and they're just not retaining people. You know, so you have to figure that out first, because no amount of price check or whatever is going to help if you are inconsistent with your service or your experience that you provide, you know?
And so often as a beauty pro, we look, well, first of all, that's a really hard thing to swallow as a human, that maybe you're not retaining somebody. So the first step there would be to be open to wanting to change it, because it'd be really easy to go into victim mentality mode. Like, it's everybody else's fault. It's not yours, but numbers don't lie. So if we're looking at that and you run a report, I mean, in Schedulicity, you can run a report on your client retention, on your service booking, and this, again, you should be able to do that. Like, if you're not running these reports, figure out how to do it. And if you don't feel like you have a software where you can do that, then we need to talk. But in order to actually run the reports and make a change, it starts with how you're going to view that change first. And it cannot be going into it with a victim mentality. And yes, that is hard. If you are a seasoned hair pro and your retention is in the tubes, that's going to be a serious check-in with you. And I am going to go out on a 0. Like, I try to speak in data now that I work for a tech company, but I'm going to go on a 20-year experience and coaching background for this amount of data. I can almost guarantee you it has nothing to do with the hair that you are sending out the door.
Agreed.
So that means we need to check in, do a little self-check. How are you showing up for yourself when you come to work? Are you coming in on time? Are you always running late? Are you always having to cancel your clients because something came up? Are you making them feel like that is there? I always say, like, when a client comes in, they're paying for my time. Whether or not I'm priced, whatever your pricing structure is, does not matter here in this example. Your time should be focused on them. So if you are spending their hour putting their foil in chit-chatting, gossiping, being a hot mess express with the neighbors around you, is that client feeling like their time is valued and important? Are they feeling like they're getting an elevated service? These are things that cost you no money.
Right.
To change potentially what your client retention looks like. Cost you no money to potentially make more money if you look into that.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Probably the most important, because most people are used to sucky hair too. The word sucky just keeps coming out on today, but
I like it.
Generally people are
Literally.
used to just mediocre hair. Like, it is what it is, literally. But the client experience, the vibe in that salon is the game changer. And that is on all the people that are under that roof.
100%. Yes. And that's where it's like, if you're in a team-based environment, that's where team alignment, culture, structure comes in, because everybody else impacts what that experience looks like. But I think when we hear client experience, this is just like, and I feel like we've talked about this before, like when you think you want to open a salon because you just want it to look the way you want it to look. When we talk client experience, I think people think, oh, I need to get the new Nespresso machine and it's got to have a latte and the Biscoff cookies sitting next to it because I saw that somewhere, and that's going to make me make more money. Well, first of all, you just spent more money. And again, I could go on historical knowledge saying it's not about just your cappuccino offering. It is a feeling and a sense of value. The value is more of a feeling. It has to start there. And then you can add in the rest of it. The freaking place where my daughter goes to therapy and she's obsessed with her therapist, the place smells like it's like 500 bajillion years old. And I think it's only 50 years old. I mean, they try, like they've got like the diffusers and things. Like, she's not walking in and getting a cappuccino and a freaking Biscoff cookie for her little 15-year-old client experience. But when she's there, she feels valued and seen, and she comes out feeling better, and she will never let me not let her go there. And that's what I'm talking about when I say lifers for your clients.
Yes.
I have two topics to touch on. So the amenities thing, we've talked about that, Jen, a lot, where with your business, you want to sort of think about what separates you, what, like Missy, what you were just saying, like what is your vibe? What is your brand? Because those are the people that you're going to attract. And that's I'm not knocking any of this stuff, but again, the espresso machine and all that stuff, I feel like everywhere has coffee. Everywhere offers beverages. So you don't have to rely on that, because that's not what separates you.
And if that's what you're marketing, then I mean, I'm coming there for hair. Why would you be marketing the drinks you're offering me? Like, that just seems like ass backwards to me. Market the hair, like my service, not the drink portion.
Well, the challenge,
unless you decide you're opening a bar next door, then cool.
Yeah, let's open a bar. Yeah, so, but you always want to be solving problems for your clients. Like, so my hair's too long. I want it shorter, right? That's a super basic way to look at it, but that's the problem the person had. Their beverage in the morning, not an issue. I promise you, they already have that figured out. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your coffee, because whatever. Like, some days people come in and they're like, oh my God, I forgot to grab a coffee. Like, thank you for having that. But I do see a lot of stuff like, here's our martini of the week or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know that that's really doing anything for your business. And again, somebody reach out if it is, like, because that is interesting to me,
I would say all of those things are secondary and potentially tertiary. Are they potentially really cool things that, and this is where we get into, again, because we're trying to speak to the masses here. I feel like I'm covering all of these different business structures, but at its core, if your client communication isn't allowing that client to feel seen and understood, it doesn't matter what you're offering on the back end. Now, if you have excellent client retention, your clients are lifers, seen, understood, they want to be on your survivor island, and you want to start potentially elevating what your paycheck looks like because you are creating a more in-tuned and elevated atmosphere, that's when you're keyed in, dialed in, those extras within the experience are going to, I would recommend, like, okay, let's let this client see where this continued value is coming from. That's like step 3 or 4. not step one for client experience, which is where I think we go. People go to like, gotta get the Biscoff cookies, then I will make the money. And it's like, no, be dialed in on who you're talking to, who you're marketing to, what your high ticket items are that you're getting the most consistent paychecks from. That's how you run a report. And then do that really, really well. Then you can add the cookies.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely down on the list, but it's what you see. And I think when you look at, it's easy to get sucked in because we look at social media and you're like, all right, this week, everyone's offering whatever. That must be working for them. Now you have no clue what's working for that other business. So I would caution you from just doing the monkey see, monkey do thing, because that person probably did the same thing. They don't know even why they're doing it. So just as important as numbers are, you have to understand the intent behind everything. So even offering coffee, like you should understand why you're offering coffee. I know that seems silly. People want coffee, right? But if you haven't thought about the other things to get the people in and keep them coming back, there's no one to drink coffee. Now you're at an issue because nobody was coming in because you had coffee. What else I remembered too, Jen, is we used to have, we worked with people in the past and they would say like Missy was talking about gossiping and things. And I would say like trying to coach and just be blunt, but not mean. And I'm like, make it more about them and less about you and your love life and all that stuff, because whatever, it should be an experience for the client. That's what they're paying for. And I would always get, my clients like it. And that's just an immediate shutdown. And it goes back to like the blaming everyone else.
Well, there's that judgment thing Missy was talking about that not everybody can handle.
Right.
And maybe they like small doses of it, but if their whole appointment is about you, that may not be the experience they really are asking for.
Right.
And when they don't come back, you'll know why.
So can we touch on employees? Were you going to say something, Missy? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, again, the personal experience here, but we talked so much about burnout and, we talked about boundaries last time and all of these things. And I'm like, dude, nothing makes me feel more burnout at the end of the day than, because at this point I have, similar to you, Jen, just been seeing my clients for a really long time. Yeah. So you're just at that level when they just want to talk about everything going on in my life and my kids, and everybody's like, oh, clients are putting all of their issues on us. I'm like, please give me your issues. I don't want to talk about mine anymore. Please, I don't want to tell you how crazy it is raising 2 teenage girls. Like, stop.
I know. I like to go in to not talk about what's going on. I'll touch on little things because that's that emotional connection. But then I'm always like, what are you doing? What's going on with you? Like the other day, someone was like, you're traveling soon. And I'm like, oh, I didn't tell you. And I'm like, because I don't really talk about stuff. Like that's my personal life. So it doesn't matter. Your appointment is not affected. I've put you after my travel. So here we are. But, then they hear it and you have to talk a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm done talking about myself. Like,
except
you guys go.
You're literally traveling for work. So it's not necessarily your personal life. But I get it.
I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm like that, Jen. I've always kept, probably.
Yeah, I just don't need to share, I guess, a ton of stuff, right? So, I'm traveling for work, and then I kind of sidebar. And if they ask more, and then they're like, wait, where are you going? And then it goes into more. But if I can just get away with that one sentence, then that's where I go, and I don't say anything else.
Oh, yeah. And if you're feeling super burnout at the end of the day, literally, please just sit in your car in silence, maybe even get yourself a little, a coffee, if you will, a Biscoff cookie. I don't know. And think about your conversations from that actual day. Like do it at the end of the day when it's fresh on your mind and think about those conversations. Are you feeling drained and burnout because of the things that were said to you about other people? Or is it because you felt like you had to be on all day? And if that's it, then you can start to, again, the burnout is coming for me mostly when I feel like I was prompted to talk about myself a lot. So all that to say, before you shut down the idea that it needs to be more about the client, I'm going to tell you, you might feel better if you make it more about them. Like literally feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone is the main character in their own story. So we only can see the world through our eyes, right? Not to get too crazy, but like I'm the main character in this recording this podcast. I cannot see it through your eyes. You know what I mean? So if you make it about them, it's just better overall.
Yeah.
experience wise. So are there any other specific metrics, or is there anything different that you guys look at Schedulicity that you would recommend people look at? And maybe we can even touch on, and Jen, you can help too, because we goal set with our team, but the metrics maybe that even an employee, so say you're a commission employee, what should you be focused on?
If you're a commission employee, and this is, again, like it's on your dashboard with Schedulicity, if it is on another piece of technology, like another platform, I'm unaware because it's just not something that I ever used before on my previous software. My favorite report is estimated revenue. The fact that you can look at what currently is on your books that you are set to make, this gives you that ability, instead of having that like hindsight where we're saying like go back and look, this is you're actually like looking in real time. So you're not, again, like you can look at your books and say like, oh, they look super full, but you can run that report and be like, ooh, what are they full with? Or like maybe again, I'm super full, but this revenue looks funky, but last month it didn't and I was just as full. Then you have a little bit of a pricing potential. If you're commissioned, that's a little tricky because you might not fully be in charge of that. But that's a conversation. Again, like you all are commission business owners. What would you feel like if you had someone that had so much drive that they ran their own report and was like, hey, I'm noticing that when I'm fully booked with these services, it looks different. And I don't want to speak for you, but how would you approach that conversation? Would you want to problem solve with that? Would you want to look at their pricing with them?
Yeah, for sure.
We go over stuff all the time. We even have like our staff will come in and be like, I want to raise my prices. So I'm like, okay, we're literally, oh my God, that word. Why, obviously, and the reasoning is always interesting because it's not always even about the prices. It's about, well, I've been here a long time and I deserve it. Like, okay. So then we look at like, well, let's see how booked you are. And if we do a price increase, can you actually be supported? Like, or are you going to make less because you raised your prices before you're booked enough for these clients, enough to fall off and enough to stay that it actually will be a financially successful move for you? And we talk about all of that stuff. And then, sometimes we arrive at an aha moment of like, yes, it's time to wait, or an aha moment of like, nope, it's time to do this. And then they understand it. So it's not just a yes or no, like, nope, I'm in charge. Too bad. It's think about these things. And then they are part of the conversation and part of the solution. And they understand almost the next step of goals to get where they need to be in order for that to happen in a way that it's, like I said, financially successful.
It's another good reason to zoom out with people too, because when we have meetings, it's easy for somebody that's been cranking for 2 or 3 months to be like, I need to raise my prices. All right, hold on a second, because one, like zoom out. So for the last, say, 3 months, you were really busy, but for the year and a half before that, you were not. So what is the average time of between client visits? Because you might only see somebody twice in that time. So you have to factor in those things as well, because, and I'll admit it, we've made mistakes in the past with pricing issues with staff that is like, they're so excited and they want to raise their prices and you want to support them. And then their prices go up and then their numbers drop because they just weren't there yet. And it's not, I love what you said about the time, because we've had that in the past where a staff member will approach us and say, I feel like I should raise my prices. And we say, why? Because that's always where you start, right? And it goes to the time. Well, I've been here longer than that person. Not a reason. Like, try again.
It doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, that's not.
Again, it goes back to your numbers. How busy are you? How booked are you? Where's your retention? And will this move be supported?
Yeah, that person might.
When I say supported financially, that they can keep moving up.
That person might be, years newer than you in the industry, but they might have, for whatever reason, a full book. So it's a completely different sort of set of parameters,
What is that? Like, the comparison is the thief of joy, whatever. Like, you should not be comparing yourself to the other person sitting right next to you, because it is two different worlds.
Or the other business across the street that's
Correct.
charging
On all
whatever.
levels,
You
right?
have no clue why they're charging that. They might not even have a clue why they're charging that. So to compare or be like, well, they're charging X for a haircut. Yeah, but what is the, like Missy said earlier, I guess we're kind of coming back
You don't know their
to the beginning, but
bottom line.
you have no clue about their overhead or their costs associated with just opening the doors,
That's why whenever I see people like, what are people charging in this area? Like, what should my pricing be? I never do, because I'm like, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm like, what I want to say is, well, what do you need to make to cover your, like, how much do you need to bring in every day, every week, every month? And then like you go back from that. That's how you support what your pricing should be, not what everyone else is charging. And now you're like, oh, I'm just going to be the middle of the road person. Like, that's not how you strategize your pricing. But it's what I see so often on like those Facebook groups and stuff like that, where I'm like, like I said, I want to comment, but I don't, because it would.
But she doesn't, because she don't want to get in a fight.
Literally.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
I think and then we can go into, which that's where your reports really do make it, where you can see what services are you booking the most, what is your retention, going into those things, because to back up the price increase, or I want to raise my prices, I don't personally believe in just like this across the board percentage. I think that, and again, this is because I'm like a nerd and I've always nerded out on these things. It's always been based on what I'm frequently doing the most, what I'm learning, what am I actually elevating my education in, and then I break it down into what I'm truly doing the most. Like, I'll be so for real with you, my standalone haircut is never a super high priority for me to figure out what the price is, because I do maybe 2 of those a year. Like, I just don't have clients that just come in for haircuts. So for me to hyper focus on my haircut price because girlfriend down the road is whatever, like that would not be in alignment with my personal business.
For sure. And Jen, yesterday I saw a post. Actually, it was Steve, who and he posted his opinion was that location doesn't matter anymore, which I agree with. There are people in every community of almost all demographics. Like, I know people with private jets that you wouldn't like assume that these people have jets or things like that. And so you can't just look at an area and be like, well, in the city, I can charge more. Not necessarily. There are people paying a lot more for haircuts, say, where we live than maybe in Boston, closest like big city, and that's just because, well, multiple factors, but probably that person understands their demographic and they're targeting those clients,
Right.
Numbers,
math.
Location,
I don't think location matters, especially with remote work, but I do think location is an important factor in your perceived value. So I will say, can you be a high ticket stylist in a small town? 100%. Are you maybe going to have to do a little bit more work to market your perceived value?
Right.
Also, yes. Yeah. So that's where, again, like, even just that statement, we can't go into it like that one size fits all, location doesn't matter, because I live we just moved 20 miles north of Jupiter, Florida. Jupiter, friggin' everybody wants to show you how much money they have. Let's just talk about it. Like, they almost want you to be overpriced so then they can say they went there to get their hair done. 20 miles north, there's no less money here. I will tell you that right now. But these people, they like a bargain, and they like to, like, it's the opposite. They're like, I'm going to drive my car until it's 15 years old because I can. And so
sure,
you would need to pivot that expectation on why somebody is going to pay you that elevated price, because the people up here don't necessarily have as much to prove as the people down south. Right. That's again, going back into your customer profile, who you're talking to, and knowing who and why.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying that you should try to find the most rundown building and put a salon in there, but I think...
Oh, why not? That's so fun.
That might actually, that might be fun, actually. Challenge accepted.
That's what I did, and it was a thing.
Yeah, you're definitely going to need to work on your atmosphere, to up it. But there are, like you said, Missy, there are people with disposable income, and it would surprise you. So don't base it just on, like, You know, you see a lot of people won't pay that price here. Well, not with that attitude. You know what I mean? Like if you get out there and you tell them why they're paying that price with you, then they will, you know.
And it may not be overnight. You might have to strategize a long journey of getting your prices up to that point where you want to be. Just because you want something doesn't mean it can just happen and happen successfully. There needs to be a plan or many steps and goals that you need to hit in order to get where you want to be.
Cool.
But that would be knowing your numbers.
You have to know your numbers. Listen, the amount, and again, because everything is publicized now, where people have raised their prices too soon and then had to come back and say, actually, I'm lowering my prices, or how you two were just super vulnerable and said you've kind of let people raise prices and then their numbers drop. Like that's a real thing. And just making those decisions on an emotional basis or because you think, you always want to be doing something at its most calculated point. And even then, sometimes there's room for error, but you can't even start to be calculated if you don't even know what your numbers are.
Got to have that starting point.
Yeah, something.
I think we covered a lot for people listening.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any final thoughts or?
People probably need a nap now.
Yeah.
Or coffee.
They need the Nespresso and the Biscoff cookies. All right, cool.
My final thought would just be, don't be afraid to look. It's powerful when you do. I can attribute every big business decision I've ever made, even when it feels hard, knowing that I can back it up with a number always gives me that peace of mind that I am making the most calculated decision I made. I chose to close my salon because I ran numbers and I knew what was required to keep it open. It gives you powerful decision-making tools when you know why you're making the decisions you're making.
Love that.
Yeah, me too.
I think that's perfect.
We can end
Nice
there
job.
then. Thanks so much, Missy, for your time. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
All right.
All right. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Have a good day. Thanks, y'all.
You too.